Hello, and welcome back to the Sustainable Brown Girl podcast. This show exists to connect Black, Brown, and Indigenous women who are interested in sustainability. Our goal is to inspire, encourage, and educate each other, from gardening to thrifting to minimalism to veganism and everywhere in between. We are all on a journey to taking care of our bodies and our planet. I'm your host, Ariel Green. When I first started my sustainability journey, I noticed that pretty much all of the most popular influencers on YouTube and Instagram were white women. However, today's featured sustainable brown girl is quickly rising to the top. Jhanneu is an eco-influencer, YouTuber, and founder of Low Waste Beauty. She creates amazing content sharing sustainable home, beauty, and clothing brands with all of her followers. In this episode, we'll talk with Jhanneu about how to transition your beauty routine to be more low waste, and she shares some tips on how to build your own eco-influencer brand. Thanks so much for joining us today, Jhanneu.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So, can you tell us about your sustainable journey and how you became interested in the low waste movement?
Yeah, of course. So, my background, I am from Chicago. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. So, I was always very aware of like food deserts and just like lack of access to healthcare and like disparities between, black and brown communities and white communities. Environmental issues were never something I thought about because whenever I would hear people talking about environmental issues, they were white and they were talking about
Mm,
things that like I couldn't even fathom. Like we can't talk about like Antarctica melting and the polar bears if we can't even like figure out ways to get people access to healthy food. So
yeah.
there's always been this big kind of like disparity between the two topics. But as I got older, I started learning more about environmental issues. I got super into minimalism and I started learning more about our trash and how much trash we're producing, where the trash is going, how we're only recycling 9%, or the things that we recycle only 9% of those things actually get recycled. And it's pretty crazy to think about that like our daily habits really do have a long lasting impact on the planet. And then I started getting more educated on just like environmental racism and how Black and brown communities are disproportionately affected by climate change. So I just became super passionate about it and just wanted to share my story. I already had a little bit of a following on Instagram, but I switched it to talk more about sustainable living because I thought it just would add more value to the world. And then I launched my YouTube channel in January, and there aren't really that many Black creators on YouTube talking about sustainable living. So I just wanted to be another face in the movement that could talk about these issues. And I also have a blog called Low Waste Beauty, which focuses on sustainable beauty products, but also inclusive beauty products, because a lot of sustainable beauty products, there'll be shampoo bars for white hair, but what about my
Hmm.
hair?
Right.
who's making shampoo bars for me? So if we want everyone to be sustainable, we have to make sure we're also creating products for them to be sustainable as well, whether that's a shampoo bar or whether that's just something that's affordable. So that's kind of how I started my journey, and now I just try to make it I guess known to the world what you can do to make a difference on any level, whether you have a lot of money or you don't.
Yeah, I love that. The way that I started my sustainability journey too was like I saw all these white people on YouTube and it's like, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm interested in this. And it's like, yeah, we really do need to have more diversity. And so it's great seeing you and Thrifts and Tangles and like so many more people starting to pop up on YouTube and Instagram talking about it. So yeah, totally love the diversity. So, you mentioned a little bit about Low Waste Beauty.
Mhm.
Um, can you tell us more about that platform and what you're hoping to accomplish with it?
Of course, of course. So originally had a blog called Low Waste Home, which was just about all things sustainable living. And it was a good blog, but I just want it to be different. Like, I feel like there's a million sustainable living blogs, but there's no one that I've seen talking about sustainable beauty, but also with the focus of it being inclusive to all shade ranges. So for me, I love beauty products like makeup. I have too many. I try to be as minimalist as possible when it comes to beauty products. It's not the case, unfortunately, but um I've always loved beauty products, but I when I was transitioning to being low waist, there weren't many products that I felt as though catered to me or like had me in mind when they were being created. So low waist beauty covers interviews with women who are in women who are in the space of sustainability and what their beauty routines are, and then also just best shampoo bars for curly hair or best sunscreens for all skin types because some people have darker skin and the white sunscreen may not work for them. So for me, it's all about just making it inclusive and accessible and making sure not to leave anyone out of the conversation.
Yeah. So what are some good makeup brands that are inclusive, that have a wide diversity
Yeah.
of ranges?
So all the brands that I've used, I really think that they could be even wider, but I'll give you some that I
Mhm.
think are doing an okay job. Right now, I use Pacifica Foundation. You can find them at Target. What I
Oh,
do like about them is that they're vegan and they're clean. They come in a glass bottle, but they do also have a return program, so you can send that back, which is
wow.
pretty cool. So that's something that's more on the affordable drugstore side. And then if you want to get a little more expensive, there's Elate Cosmetics. They
Mhm.
have clean products. I've used a bunch of their products before, and they have a decent range. But Pacifica definitely has a pretty big range. And Kaija Weiss I've used, but they're like super expensive. Like they're like the luxury. Yes,
Oh,
like they're like it's like $68 for their foundation. Like the packaging, yeah,
whoa.
the packaging is beautiful, but like I just can't wrap my. I bought it just because I wanted to try it out, but I don't know, $68 is a lot for a foundation, but their shade ranges are like decent considering the amount of ranges they have. Because what I also look at too, it's like if they have 20 shades, I think
Mhm.
it needs to be evenly distributed in terms of like the shade
Yeah,
ranges.
for sure.
So if you have 20 shades, I expect you to have a good amount of darker shades versus if you have like 5 shades, then okay. But even though I don't know, I still feel like there should be more shade ranges because even when I
Mhm.
go on Etsy and I've looked at zero waste makeup, it's like nothing would work for me. So I'm just like, well, okay then.
Wow.
So yeah, those are my three recommendations for like three different price points.
Okay, and what about shampoo bars? Because I 'Cause I'm in the market for one.
So you know what's really funny? My go-to shampoo bar is Bronner's Castile soap. With yes,
Really?
it's less than $5. I use it
Yeah.
on my body. I use it on my hair. It lathers super super well.
Wow.
I've tried a couple different shampoo bars from like Ethique and Lush, and like it doesn't compare. And those are like $15,
Mm.
whereas Bronner's is like less than five. So I don't know. I love it. It just lathers really well, and I feel like my hair is clean and it's affordable.
Wow. Yeah, I have a couple bars here, so I'm actually gonna try that. Thank you for sharing that. So what tips can you offer to someone who's wanting to transition their beauty routine to be more low waste?
So I would say first and foremost, don't feel the need to throw out your stuff and go buy sustainable products. The most sustainable thing you can do is use what you already have. So
Mhm.
once you have already used what you already have and you're looking for a sustainable alternative, I mean there are different. You can go on Lois Beauty, you can go and buy YouTube and Instagram as well. I'm always talking about sustainable beauty products, so that could be a good help. And then there's different marketplaces like Earth Hero, that carries different low waste makeup. And then there's the detox market. They're more on the pricey side, but they do have a lot of clean beauty products that don't come in a ton of plastic. But I think if you just like focus on finding sustainable marketplaces that sell makeup, you'll have a pretty good chance of finding something that could work for you.
Perfect. Some of my favorite content on your personal Instagram and YouTube platforms are the low waste home and beauty posts. And I've noticed recently in the past few months that you've been collaborating with some companies like Avocado Mattress and Blue Land and Elate Cosmetics, like you mentioned earlier. How did you start doing these collaborations and how do you choose what companies you work with?
Yeah, for sure. So, when did I start working with brands? I feel like I really started working with brands probably late last year. I probably had about, I don't know, 20,000 followers on Instagram. And it's kind of I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like when one person sees you working with a brand, other people kind of want to work with you. So sometimes
Mhm.
when you're trying to get your foot in the door, it's like you just need like one good brand to uh, like add notability to you. But for me, a lot of brands reach out to me, and when I'm looking for a brand to work with, one, it's like, are you sustainable? And sustainable isn't just like, do you pay your workers fairly? But it's like, do you feature people of color on your page? Do you
Mhm.
ship things to me in plastic? Like, there's so many different levels to are you sustainable? So once you like kind of pass my sustainability test, I then like provide my rates, and like if they're willing to work with paying me fairly, I think that helps a lot. That weeds out a ton of brands because a lot of brands just want to give you product and they want you to post. And it's like, I've spent
Yeah.
thousands of dollars on filming equipment and I'm not gonna like
Mhm.
give you a free post just because you think it doesn't take that long to do. But it's like you're paying for all the years and all the work that I've put into building the following in the first place.
Right.
But I say no to a lot of brands, um, just because I just don't think they align with what I want to do, or whether it's like I get a lot of like clean beauty brands that use a ton of plastic packaging, and I'm like, if you haven't been following me long enough, like I try to mention brands that don't use any plastic or very minimal plastic, because for me, sustainability is like you got to look at the whole picture and not just like is it clean and vegan, but what is it also packaged in as well.
Yeah, definitely. What tips would you give listeners who are also wanting to become an eco-influencer?
So I would say figure out how you can add value, because you can't. I feel like if you're just posting photos, it has to mean something. Like, why does someone want to follow you? Like, you have to
Mhm.
understand what that why is, and you have to add value to your followers. And so I think when you're providing good information, people will come, and when you're providing good content, people will come. I think also focusing on creating shareable content, which I recently talked about in my stories, which basically means creating content that people would want to share, whether that's like a quote or whether that's maybe a video. So those will do better on my page than just like a single photo of myself. So you want to try to get people to do the work for you. Because if you look at my page, for example, like the photos, you can't see my shares. I can see my shares, obviously, but the photos that are slideshows that have a ton of shares have way more likes. So the shares and the
Mhm.
likes definitely correlate with each other. So it's just like figuring out what does well on your page and like going with that. Um, and then also reaching out to other influencers that have similar followings and doing giveaways with them and collaborating with them and doing takeovers can be really helpful as well. So if you have 5,000 followers, maybe you work with someone that has 7,000, you guys do a giveaway, and then you guys can just cross promote, and you can just like continue to build together and build a community. And also just know your worth. I don't believe in doing work for free. Even if you have 1,000 followers, I think you should be charging brands, even if it's a small amount, to post, because you're providing them with valuable content that they can also then use on their page. So a lot of it's just like knowing your worth and your value and investing in yourself and making sure you're learning every day on how you can produce better content. And with YouTube University, you can pretty much learn anything nowadays.
Yes, so true. That's great. Do you think you need to have, well, you just said that even if you have 1,000 followers, but do you think that you should have a specific amount of followers before you can work with brands?
I don't think so. I mean, obviously, I don't think you should have like 10 followers, right?
Yeah.
You gotta have something. But I think
Right.
if you're like, if you have 1,000 followers, you can still charge brands, because if you think about the you posting a photo, right? If a brand needed to create that photo themselves, they would have to hire someone to film, they would have to hire someone to light it, they would have to hire talent. You're saving them so much money and time by
Mhm.
creating this photo for them. So you have to think about it in that way. It's like, yeah, you I don't know, yeah, it's easy to like post this photo, but it's still saving you a ton of money. So you just have to think about it that way. And I just also think of myself as a business and not just like an influencer, because I'm trying to grow like a big brand, right?
Yeah.
So I just am at a point where I just don't do anything for free unless it's something I really like believe in. But even if you're small, I think you should know that you are worth something. Like you should know that your content is valuable, and you should just work towards like making it as valuable as possible. So even for me with my YouTube channel, I put so much work into it, and like my camera is expensive, and you don't have to have an expensive camera to create good content, but my point is that like you have to invest in being the best so that people have to come to you. So when you're like
Mhm.
one of the very few YouTubers talking about sustainable living who's black, who's creating amazing content, people are going to come to you, and you can also charge a premium for that. So it's just all about being the best that you can be and adding the most value to your followers and to brand, which I think will uh, really help you in the long run.
Yeah, and I definitely see you creating that space for yourself. Like, I see you and maybe Ashley Renee as like some of the top eco influencers that are, black and brown. So, also speaking of that, do you feel like more brands have reached out to you in the past few weeks or so because you're a woman of color?
So I've had a ton of brands reach out to me, and a lot of them want to put you on their platform because they want to seem more diverse. And so a
Hmm.
lot of times I feel like when I tell a brand my rate, like that tells me if they're really interested in actually having me on because I'm black versus like they actually care about me as a creator, because you brands will put their money where their mouth, or like you got to put your money where your mouth is. So when brands say, "Oh, we want to work with you," but then they don't want to pay me, and then it's just like you just want to use me for my knowledge and time. Um,
Hmm.
but it's good. And I mean, it's like it's good that a lot of people are finding out about me and what I'm doing, and that I'm also like helping people who want to be influencers like learn how to talk to brands and how to reach out to them, because it can be very overwhelming when you're first starting out. So I'm probably gonna in the future, hopefully in the next month or so, start a Patreon and talk about growing your following and what that looks like and how to create better content.
That would be awesome. I saw that you started Low Waste Home and now you have Low Waste Beauty. Can you tell me about the transition in that?
All right, so the low waste home was more just about your general sustainable living tips from home to beauty to whatever. Um, but again, like I always think of things in terms as a business. And if every single sustainable living blog out there for the most part is about just like a sustainable home, like how are you going to be different? And so
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I need something to stand out. And I didn't see anyone talking about sustainable beauty as like as like the main focus. So I just really thought that that would be a great way to um, build a blog, and then also like I would eventually love to create my own sustainable beauty line as well. So it's just like thinking about all these things of like what can you do now that's going to help you in the future. So like if I built out the whole low waste home, it still still would figure out a way to make that into a business. But I just had to take a step back and think about where do I want this to go, and if the route is I want to create my own beauty line, then I should probably create a beauty blog. So it's just
Yeah.
always thinking about, always thinking two steps ahead of like, where do I want this to go? So you can make sure you're making the right decisions just now to go in that direction.
Love that. Love the business mindset. I was gonna ask you too if you, wanted to create a beauty line, and you just answered that, so I think that's amazing.
Thank you.
Perfect. So, one last question, Janu. What is one thing that anyone can do to be more sustainable?
My biggest tip that I always say is just say no to things that you don't need, because those things end up creating a ton of waste in your life. So whether it's like I know we're all at home, but like whether it's like you're going to Sephora and they offer you free makeup samples, just say no, because those tiny little pieces of plastic are just going to end up in a landfill. So it's just finding ways in your daily life to say no to things that you don't need, whether that's clothing or food or whatever the case may be, just saying no and not bringing the waste into your home in the first place. And that's something anyone can do no matter what their budget is.
Yes, absolutely. 100% agree. So, where can everyone find you on the interwebs?
Yes. So my Instagram is at Jhanneu, which is Jhanneu. And then the same for my YouTube. You can find me at Jhanneu. And then my blog is just lowwastebeauty.com.
Perfect. Thanks so much for joining us. Please go follow her everywhere. I'm really looking forward to your eco influencer program that you put out there. I think it's going to be really great.
Great.
So,
Thank you so much
thanks.
for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this Sustainable Brown Girl podcast. Be sure to subscribe and share it if you loved it, and leave a review. You can find us on Instagram at Sustainable Brown Girl, and check out our Facebook community. We would love to have you there. Until next time, let's continue to make healthy choices for the health of our planet and the health of our bodies. Thanks for listening.